Hello, I just want to quickly explain to you the basics of the internet and the World Wide Web and how they work, just so you've got a better understanding before we get on with creating our own websites, web pages. So, first of all, you have to understand they are very different things. The internet is this big global network of computers, of computerized devices. So it can be laptops, it can be tablet computers like iPads, it can be desktop computers, it can be internet connected fridges and heating systems and so on, phones. These all connect together around the world, and that is what the internet is. Just all these connections. So the internet's been about for longer than the World Wide Web, and this is the basic idea of how it works. A lot of people confuse Wi-Fi with the internet and the World Wide Web. They get a bit muddled, but let's begin with the basics. In your house, you probably have a Wi-Fi router. I say you probably have. If you're watching this on the web just now, you have a Wi-Fi router. They're all Wi-Fi these days. The router, you can see in my stunning picture here, I seem to have drawn like an old-fashioned TV or something. That's supposed to be a router. I didn't spend a great deal of time on this artwork. The router is connected in by a cable into other cables, which we'll look at in a moment, and it can use Wi-Fi, and Wi-Fi is just a wireless technology, a way of sending invisible signals through the air up to a range of about 100 meters. So your internet service provider, your ISP, so that's someone like, in my case, I've got PlusNet, but there are loads of others. They'll probably provide you with a router. You plug it into your house, and then you can connect other Wi-Fi devices to the router wirelessly. As I say, it's got a range of about 100 meters, but that depends on things getting in the way and interference from other devices and so on. So even if your house isn't massive, you might still find there are spots in it where you can't get a good Wi-Fi signal. But here, in my house, I've got this PlusNet router, and I can connect using my iPad or whatever other tablet computer. We send these signals, which I've depicted for some reason here as these little green lines. And then we can add in other devices. This is my stunning sketch of a laptop and my Wi-Fi enabled printer. So all these devices, they're sending signals to the router, and it takes their signals and sends them out and down this cable. And meanwhile, it's getting signals back, it's getting signals back and sending them back to these things. So for example, when I'm in my house and I want to print to my printer, I send signals from my laptop, and then the router sends the signals to the printer, and it'll print out whatever I've sent. Okay. Now we don't have to use Wi-Fi. These routers always have ports. We can use these things, Ethernet cables. In school you'll have seen them. They go from the backs of all the desktop computers we use in the computer suites. They go from the backs of those into stuff all around the school. There are cables everywhere. So if I want, I can use Ethernet cables, and I have, for example, used it with my printer before. If I've felt it's not getting a very good signal, I'm having problems with it, I've plugged an Ethernet cable from my printer into the router, and then it's enough to use Wi-Fi anymore. So I can connect to the internet without using Wi-Fi. It's just a wireless technology which allows us to do that. Again, you can see I've beautifully drawn these on my laptop and my printer connected by Ethernet cables here. And then this wire, which plugs into a little telephone socket, then goes underground, and here are other houses, all with these little routers in them, and the cables coming out, and they go into underground cables, these sort of things. Here's a guy working at an exchange. So these green metal boxes, you might have seen them about, you might see them about now. You're not really seeing the outside here, but all the cables, underground cables, all come up into there. You can see that, and it's an exchange point. So data can be sent along them and then off to other places. And then from there, all around the country, we've got these underground cables, and then at various points in the country, we've got these sort of landing stations for cables, where the cables come in and can be sent off under the sea. So around the world, there are these cables running under the sea, along the seabed. They're laid by these funny looking things. There are some interesting videos which you can watch on YouTube about it. But they get laid by these along the seabed. End up with this sort of stuff going all around the world under the oceans. And in fact, here's a little map you can see at some point. I just found one of Scotland, but there are cables connecting us to the various Western Isles, keeping them connected to the internet on the mainland. And then actually from the mainland we've got cables. This is a map of where there are cables going about all around the world. So indirectly we're connected to computers all around the world, and then of course in every other country they've got all the underground cables and so on. So there's just cables everywhere. We also use satellite signals. There are tons of satellites floating about up in space, bouncing signals back and forth around the world, and of course the satellite signals are then potentially routed through cables and so on. So you've got satellites. We've also got on our phones, we've got 4G, 5G signals. So you might have seen the big ugly masts, big blots on the landscape, but that's the price we pay to get our 4G and 5G. And in fact you might even have seen it in the news very recently. Like I saw it today, stuff about conspiracy theorists burning down 5G masts because they think they're spreading coronavirus, which is an unusual theory. Anyway, there we go. So the internet is just our computers and our computerized devices connected together all around the world, using these variety of techniques. So the World Wide Web is an entirely different thing. We had the internet before we had the World Wide Web. We can use the internet to do things like send emails. That can go via the internet without us ever having to touch the World Wide Web. But in the late 80s, a guy called Sir Tim Berners-Lee, an English computer scientist, came up with this idea, combining the internet, which already existed, with another idea which already existed, hyperlinks, and connecting pages of information around the world, basically creating a huge source of information. And that's what the World Wide Web is. It's just pages of information, web pages, in other words, pages of information which are stored on computers around the world, and we can access them via the internet, whether it's 4G, 5G, our Wi-Fi in our house, whatever. So that's the end. Oh no, that isn't the end of my stunning thing. So on computers around the world, now we can make any computer into what we call a web server. A web server is just a computer which stores web pages on it, and stays connected to the internet nearly all of the time. There are lots of companies that own lots of web servers, and we can put our web pages onto their web servers. We can even set up our own little computers as web servers, but ideally it has to be switched on and connected to the internet the whole time. In order to actually use the World Wide Web, so to look at these pages of information, we need to be connected to the internet, and then we just need a computer with one of these things, a browser on it. And these are some of the more popular browsers. You'll have heard of most of them. Opera's the more obscure one there. But using a browser, we can then look at web pages. That's what a browser does. So I'm going to move to my browser now. I'm going to come out of this PowerPoint, and I'm going to go to my browser. Now the one I'm using here is Google Chrome. I also have what have I got? Mozilla Firefox on this computer, and also Microsoft Edge. If you've got an Apple computer, an Apple device, you'll probably have Safari, I suppose. So anyway, here's what happens. So I'm just going to look up a page here. I've been reading Tintin with my son, so I'm going to look up Tintin. And I just want you to think about what happens. This, I'm actually going to skip this first bit. I wouldn't even quit this. Let's just pick a page here. Here's one I looked at earlier. So the Tintin official website. Now, when I click on this link, this has already gone on, but when I click on this link, now my computer's quite slow here. So that is taking ages, isn't it? Or even better, it's not, it is just taking ages. So that was actually really slow. I don't know, it felt like it took about 6 or 7 seconds. Normally it's a lot faster than that. But in that time, what happened was, when I clicked on the link, my computer sent a request to a web server somewhere in the world. The web server which has this web page on it. So through the Wi-Fi, I'm connected to Wi-Fi at the moment, through the Wi-Fi, out through my router, down under the ground, probably under the sea somewhere around the world, and back up under the ground, back to some web server. It says, can we see a copy of that page, please? The web server says, okay, makes a copy of the web page and sends it back, all the way back, gets to my computer, and my browser here displays it for me. Okay, so that happens really, really quickly. Normally it happens a lot quicker than that. That's pretty much it. Now, what my computer gets is not actually this. It has to do a bit more work than that. So if I right click here, I can view the page source. You can do this in other browsers as well. If you just Google it, find out how to do it, to view page source and whatever the name of the browser is. But right click, view page source, and here is what my computer actually gets sent. So this is the web page. This is the sort of stuff, little bits of this are the sort of thing we're going to be trying, making some very basic web pages. But there's stuff here I can see that we're going to do. This is the web page. And actually, what my browser also did in those 6 or 7 seconds that it took, a really long time, it had to go through all this and change it into this, so it renders the page. Okay, it works out what all that code means and it displays it like this. And interestingly, different browsers can display pages differently. They all do the same job. They all display web pages, but they all can do it in a slightly different way. So I spent ages looking for a little example earlier. I found this. So I found that this is in Chrome. So look at how this is displayed here, and now I've got it open here in Microsoft Edge. Now I know there are different adverts and things, so that's not the point here though. Have a look at like where the ads appear. Oh, brilliant. That's really worked well. I mean, I thought I'd found a great example earlier. I can see some very minor differences, but actually it looked so different earlier. Oh well, forget that example. I was having trouble finding one anyway. Different browsers will potentially display things differently, render things differently. However, and that's one of the hardest things about website design, creating web pages, is getting them to look the same or look right in all browsers. So, what I want you to remember is what I'm looking at here is not the web page that's on the server. It is the copy that has been sent to my computer. So this is just a copy. So when I'm looking at it, I can actually I can change this copy. I'm just going to do it this way. A little trick in Chrome, you can press F12 and you'll get these developer tools up. And then we can, again, my computer is painfully slow. When flight mode's on, I mean, really, I'd rather it weren't. My computer has actually died here. I do have quite a cheap laptop. This is really going well now. It was going well. It was going so well. Look at that pointer jumping about. Right, here we go. Let's try something else. Let's try right-clicking on this and doing inspect. Just a little thing you might like to try. If you've got Chrome, you can do it in other ways. I kind of wish I'd stopped just before I did this, because now my computer is really struggling. But I'll press on just a minute more or so. The point is, we can go and change the HTML which has been used to create this web page. It's just our copy, so I can change it to look however I want. Oh, here we are, it's finally happening. We're getting the developer tools here, so which is supposed to make it a bit easier to do this sort of thing. And we can change the copy, we can change the web page to look however we want. And we're not hacking or anything crazy like that. We're just changing a file that's on our computer, because that's what has to happen. To look at a web page, a copy has to be sent to our computer, and then we're looking at the copy. We don't get to touch the original. So let's just try here. Oh, there we go. So when I inspect that now, I should be able, I'll just change that if I can. This is great, isn't it? It's exciting. But you can try it yourselves. A lot of people quite like this bit. Well, look at that, not responding. I mean, this sort of thing happens in school, I know, in class, in front of the class. This sort of thing goes on all the time. But somehow it feels more pitiful when I'm sitting in my spare bedroom at 11:30 at night trying to record a quick video. Oh, look, it's going to let me. Look, I don't know, I'll just change it to this. A message of support. Ah, there we go. Mr. Hill is here for you. I'm here for you. Right, so that's it. Internet is the global network of computers, the World Wide Web, the way it works. These web pages stored on web servers around the world that we can access using the internet, and we get sent a copy of the web page, and our browser displays it for us. I'm now going to stop this, and hopefully this time, this is my third attempt, hopefully my computer's not going to crash when I try to save it. See ya.